Okay, welcome back to you guys. I'm going to start with meditation. Since each of our sessions we start with meditation, I'm going to start with that. And what we're going to be doing is breathing mindfulness meditation. But since you guys have been meditating with me for a little bit, I'm going to not give you guidance for the breathing mindfulness meditation. Let you guys do it yourself. And if you haven't meditated with me before, the way you do breathing mindfulness meditation is you focus on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So I'm just going to do the chanting. And then once we get into the meditation, you just on your own, just meditate, just focus on the breath. When your mind moves off the breath, you bring it back. And then when we're done with the meditation, I'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where we'll start this topic of practicing non-attachment, how to eliminate attachment to those who are closest to us, because these are the most challenging ones to eliminate, and they're usually the most deeply held attachments too. And those are the ones you would really like to eliminate, because that's going to help your relationships be so harmonious with the people around you. But as long as you have attachment in your relationships, you're not going to have harmonious relationships. So we'll do this meditation first, and then afterwards we'll talk about this. Okay, so I'm just going to do the chanting, and you do your own meditation focusing on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off, just cut that off and bring the mind back to the breath. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, So I'm going to share this next topic with you guys about how to eliminate attachment to people who are closest to you. Remember what attachment is. It's where the mind is longing, yearning, craving for things to be a certain way. In relationships, the way this is going to look is that you're going to, like I've been mentioning, pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to them when they're not doing things your way, or you're going to be putting your expectations on people. So as long as your mind has attachment, you're going to experience discontentedness. You're going to be frustrated, you're going to be agitated or annoyed, you're going to be irritated, you're going to have all these other discontent feelings, and it's going to stand in the way of you having harmonious relationships with people. So eliminating your attachment isn't to eliminate the relationship, and it's not to eliminate the love. Right? Because you can love without attachment. You just need to get to the point where your mind is let go, understanding that this person is their own unique being. They're not your children. It's not my partner. Right? These are individual beings that they are their own individuals making their own independent decisions, and you're going to need to learn how to just respect that and understand that that's what they're choosing to do, that they're making their own decisions. So I'm going to show you how to get to the point where you can let go, and now you can have harmonious relationships. Because as long as there's attachment, there's going to be discontentedness in the relationships. Okay, so just like always, you guys can ask any and all questions that you like as we go and as I share with you guys, okay? All right, so first, in order for you to eliminate your attachment in your relationships, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom. That's why you need to always prioritize your own growth and your own development. And that's why when we've been talking about certain problems you guys are having with your family or friends, I'm always saying you need to do the work. You need to do work. You need to learn the Eightfold Path. You need to be able to do this. So you're going to need to cultivate your wisdom first before you're ever able to eliminate attachment. You need to understand what an attachment is. You need to understand the symptoms of it. You need to be able to observe it in your mind. You need to be able to train in the entire Eightfold Path so you can be training your mind to let go. Because if you just do the things that I'm teaching you here, it's not going to eliminate your attachment. You're going to need to have all those foundational teachings well underway. And now you add to it this here. So you're going to need to cultivate your wisdom. You're going to need to cultivate wisdom about true love, what we were talking about this morning, understanding what true love is and how to practice it, where you're practicing love without attachment, where you're not putting expectations on others, trying to control them to do things a certain way, just loving people as they are. Unconditional love. So you're going to need to learn what that is and practice it more and more, because talking about it is one thing, but actually practicing it is a whole nother thing. And it's going to take you sometimes multiple years to be able to cultivate this ability to practice true love and to eliminate these attachments too. With my wife and my son, and I saw them in their relationships, it probably took my wife a good 5 or 6 years to eliminate her attachment to her son. So it's not going to be a very quick thing that you're going to eliminate your attachment to the people who are closest to you. You're going to need to gradually wear this away. And part of it is practicing true love. You're going to need to make sure that you understand that each individual needs to have the freedom to make their own decisions. When we try to control other people's decisions, that's coming from your own craving, desire, attachment. You're not going to be able to control other people's decisions, and the more that you try, the more frustrated you're going to get. So it's important that everybody has the freedom to make their own decisions, and you understand that that's what they're going to need to be able to do, and you're going to need to create space for that, that you're not allowing your expectations to come in and try to control people and force them to do things your way. So you're going to need to not force your approach on other people. It's important to learn how to ask and invite rather than pressure and force people or try to convince them to do things. I'll give you an example here to help you understand this. At one time when me and my wife were first dating and living together and even married, there'd be times where I would come to her and I'd say, "Hey, honey, there's this new movie coming out." I don't know what it might have been. Let's just say it was Superman. "There's this new movie called Superman coming out. I really want you to go to the movies with me. Would you like to go to the movies?" She'd say, "No, I don't want to go." I'm like, "Oh, come on, like come to the movies. You got to come to the movie. Oh, it's going to be the best movie all year long. You got to come see it." "No, I don't want to go." "Ah, you party pooper. Why aren't you coming to the movies? Like, come on. Right? Like, this is the way that I used to approach it, right? Because I was attached to her. I couldn't go to the movies just by myself and have fun because I was attached. I wanted her to be with me, and I was forming my feelings on whether or not she was with me or not. And I felt like if she wasn't with me, then she didn't love me because she wasn't with me to go watch this movie. This is trying to force and control somebody. This is trying to convince them to do things your way and pressure them into doing things your way. And this is just going to lead to discontentedness, because sometimes she would relent and she'd be like, all right, I'll go with you, right? And then when she would go with me, she was grumpy and irritable the whole time, right? So I wasn't having fun because I wanted her to have fun. I had that attachment to her. So she wasn't having fun. I wasn't having fun. It was no fun, right? Or sometimes she would stay home, and then I just would choose to stay home. I wouldn't go see the movie, and then I'd be grumpy and irritable, right? Because there was an attachment here. So as long as you're forcing and trying to control people, it's not going to produce beneficial results. So what you learn to do is you go to your partner. In this case, what I do now is I say, hey, I'd like to take you out for the movies. Would you like to go? And she might say, no, I'm not interested in going. Okay, great. I'll see you later. I'm going to the movies. Have fun. I'll see you when I get back. No reason why I can't go to the movies by myself, right? But before, my feelings and emotions were attached to whether or not she goes with me. But you can get to a point where you free your mind of that, because her saying that she's not interested to go to the movies doesn't mean she doesn't love me. Doesn't mean she isn't interested in spending time with me. It's just that at that particular moment, she's interested in staying home. Okay, so you stay home. I'm interested in going to the movies, so I'm going to go to the movies and go have fun. We don't have to be locked at the hip and go do things together all the time. We can do things independently. That's okay, right? So this is what you need to be able to get to, is ask and invite people, and they're either going to say yes or no. And if they say, yes, I'd like to come, great, go with them, right? Or if they say, no, I'm not interested in coming, okay, that's fine too. Right? And then you just go about your day, and everybody gets what they're interested in. Because in the first situation, my wife wasn't staying at home when she really was interested to stay home. So she was grumpy and irritable because she had a craving to stay at home. And I was grumpy and irritable because I was interested in seeing her have a good time. And neither of us was getting what we were really interested in. But in the second scenario, she's getting what she would like, which is to stay home. I'm getting what I would like, which is to go see the movies. And now everybody's happy. Right? Everybody's having joy. Everybody's cheerful, right? So you're going to need to ask and invite rather than pressure and force people to do things your way, because that's your craving. That's not your love. That's not your care, your concern. That's your attachment, that your mind is attached to this person, and you can't go to the movies unless they go with you, right? So you're going to have these kinds of situations all throughout your life. And there's different things, not just movies, but there's other things too, right? There might be vacations or going to a restaurant or any number of different things, okay? As your people who are close to you are struggling in life, you're going to need to learn how to allow that struggle to occur. That can be really challenging for you when you have attachment, to watch another person that you care about to struggle in life. Because when you see mom or dad or brothers or sisters or your children or your life partner struggling in any particular situation, you might feel like the way to solve this is to rush in there and make a bunch of decisions for them, and then that's going to fix everything. But that doesn't fix everything. What it is your mind's craving for this person not to struggle and not to have difficulties. And you think the way to solve that painful feeling that you're going to feel if they struggle is to run in there and fix it for them and make a bunch of decisions for them. But in this situation, they haven't cultivated any wisdom. You're just stepping into their life, making decisions for them based on your wisdom, not allowing them to have the freedom of their own decisions. And now they haven't cultivated any wisdom. So the very next situation that they're in like that, you're going to need to keep stepping in every time. And then sometimes you're not going to be around, and you're not going to be able to step in, and now they're going to struggle. So what you would like to do is be able to see your life and the people close to you as like a parallel process, whether it's your children or your parents or your life partner. Let's just take children for a moment. If your child is going along and they're struggling, rather than jump into their life and make a bunch of decisions for them and fix everything, instead, you're like a parallel process. You're helping them and guiding them to cultivate the wisdom so that they can face that challenge themselves, make decisions to then overcome it. So that then the next time they meet with that challenge, They already have the wisdom of how to overcome it, rather than you stepping into their life and making the decisions for them. So you're going to need to learn how to allow the struggle to happen. The example that I gave you with my mom, where I gave her a bunch of advice for 45 minutes or an hour, and then she chose not to do it my way, I had to just step back and let her struggle. That's what her choice was, right? The way that you've actually cultivated wisdom in certain situations is through your struggle. That's how you cultivated wisdom. So if you remove that struggle for the person, they don't actually get the opportunity to cultivate the wisdom. They're just doing what you told them to do instead of cultivating the wisdom themselves. So the problem that you're experiencing here is your discontentedness. The cause of that discontentedness is your craving, your attachment to this person, not being willing to allow the struggle to occur. So by you being comfortable with understanding that they're going to need to struggle in order to cultivate wisdom, and they're going to come out on the other side stronger, it's actually going to help you in these situations. So you're going to need to learn how to step back and let them struggle and make decisions. I can give you another example. My son, one time in the village, he was having problems with some of the friends. He was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and some of the kids were having problems in the village. And me and my wife gave him advice, and we said, hey, we see what you guys are up to. You're going to have a lot of trouble with these kids. We suggest that you don't hang out with them. And he's like, oh, no, they're my friends. I really want to hang out with them. Like, okay, well, up to you. You do what you like to do, but we know you're going to head for trouble with this. And he's like, okay, I'm going to be friends with them. Okay, up to you. So then, a few months went by. He was hanging out with these kids. And then one day he comes home and he doesn't have his bicycle helmet. And we're like, what happened to your bicycle helmet? He's like, I came out of my friend's house and it was gone. And we're like, oh, well, where'd it go? And he's like, I don't know. We were saying, well, who was at the house? And he's like, these friends were at the house. Well, who wasn't at the house? This one particular friend wasn't at the house. We're like, oh, okay. So he probably took your bicycle helmet. So we found out that this little boy had stolen his bicycle helmet, because there's only like a small handful of kids in the village. It had to be one of them. So it turned out that this one particular kid had stolen his bicycle helmet. So we needed to go sort that out for him and get his bicycle helmet back. Still, he was interested in hanging out with these kids. We're like, all right, if that's what you like to do, hang out with the kids. A couple more months went by. He came home one day, he was drenched and soaking wet. And we're like, what happened? And he's like, oh, they took a bucket of water and dumped it over my head, and they hit me on the head with the bucket. And we're like, oh, okay, so would you still like to hang out with these friends? And he's like, I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe it's not such a good idea. I don't see them treating me very nicely. Maybe I shouldn't hang out with them. We said, it's up to you. It's your choice. So eventually he ended up choosing not to spend time with these friends anymore, but he needed to go through that process, and he needed to struggle to be able to see that. And he needed to cultivate the wisdom of what it means to be a good friend and not a good friend. And then from that point forward, once he decided to stop being those friends with those particular kids, he ended up going to some new school, and I noticed that he was really good at making new friends, and he was making really good, wholesome friends. Whereas if we would have forced him not to be friends with those kids in the village, he would have never cultivated the wisdom that he needed of how to make good friends. So now when he's entered into new schools, because he went to 3 different schools at one time, as he was going in and out of the schools, I was noticing that he was always really good at making new friends, because he had learned that very early in life in the village. So if we didn't allow that struggle to happen, if we would have just stepped in and tried to control him and force him not to have those friends, he would have never cultivated the wisdom of how to make good friends, right? So you're going to need to allow your loved ones, the people that are around you, to struggle and have difficulties. And that's the choice they're making, right? And that's going to allow them to then feel comfortable with the decisions that they're making. And then it's going to allow you to eliminate your attachment to them, because you wanting to step in and actually fix it is just going to reinforce your attachment. Let me keep going, and then I'll get your question. This is where you need to understand that each of these individuals in your life, they are their own individual being, right? Like, even though I might introduce you and I might say, this is my son, my mind understands he's not mine. He doesn't belong to me. He's his own individual being. I am impermanent in his life. I am not going to be in his life permanently, because someday I'm going to die, most likely before him, right? So if I try to make all the decisions for him and he never cultivates wisdom, when I die, he's not going to know how to make decisions in life. So my goal isn't to control him and force him to do things my way. My goal is to help him cultivate wisdom. So whether I'm there or whether I'm away, he knows how to make wise decisions. And there's times where I travel and I go teach in other places, sometimes for 3 weeks or a month or so. And when I'm gone, he never has any issues. He deals with everything they need to deal with completely fine because he has the wisdom of how to handle these things. So when I'm in his life, he makes wise decisions. And when I'm away, he also makes those same wise decisions. Whereas if he didn't have the wisdom of how to make decisions, and he was only doing it out of fear of his parent, when I was away, he wouldn't know how to make those decisions. But he knows how to make decisions because when I'm away, he still makes really wonderful decisions with his relationship with his mom or whatever he's doing in school or any number of things. He still knows how to make wise decisions. So it's important that you think about people as being individual beings. Sometimes when we get married, people teach you that we're now one person, right? As a married couple, we're now one person and we're supposed to agree on everything. This isn't actually true. You're not one person. As a married couple, you're still two individual people. You're not going to agree on everything. And if you go into the relationship thinking that now that you're together as a couple, you are one person and you have to agree on everything, you're going to fight and fight and fight in order to get each other to agree. Where sometimes me and my wife, we disagree. In the past, we used to argue with each other and try to convince each other who's right and who's wrong. Where now we just understand that we're going to have different opinions and that's okay. And we sit down and we talk about it and we discuss it. And at the end of the conversation, we just decide what we're going to do. Sometimes she starts to agree with me. Sometimes I start to agree with her. Sometimes we walk away from the conversation and we still disagree, but she's going to do things her way and I'm going to do things my way. And we're okay with that because we understand impermanence. Where before we didn't understand impermanence and we would fight. It was almost like two animals fighting till death. I'm sure you guys have been in the same situations where you're like fighting to death with your friends or family members. It's like two animals fighting to death because that's how the unenlightened mind functions, like an animal. Even though we're human beings, the mind oftentimes in the unenlightened state functions like an animal. So you're not an animal anymore. You can choose to disagree and understand that that's okay. You don't need to agree on everything. So everybody's their own individual beings. And on this same topic, it's important to have discussions versus forced agreements. So in the past, I used to try to force my wife to agree with me on any given thing, or she would try to force me to agree with her. But now it's a discussion. And like I said, sometimes we walk away having changed our opinion and I'll go to her side or she'll come to my side. Other times we walk away and we still disagree, but that's okay. We do it friendly, politely, respectfully, and we just understand that that's part of life. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay, right? Then it's important to find some time alone for people that you're attached to. Like say you're going on holiday together as a couple or something like this. You would like to spend time alone when you're on holiday, or even when you're just hanging around the house, spending time alone. Sometimes we think, oh, we're going on vacation together for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We have to do everything together. That's going to just reinforce your attachment. You need to be able to do things separately. So even if you're going on vacation for a week or so, sometimes you go off and do one thing and they go off and do something else. That's okay. Right? And this is going to help you to not have attachment in your relationships. Whereas if you're always together through every single thing that you do, the mind's just going to hold on and hold on and hold on. So I have more to share with you guys here, but I'm going to pause here and see what questions you have, because I think you had a question. You have a question still? You have a mic right there, actually. You're so used to getting up.
What's the limit of allowing a close one, to do whatever he, in this case, I'm talking about our son. Mm-hmm. What if the path that he chooses is clearly part of the wrong view, wrong action, leads to addiction of all sorts? Mm-hmm. When do we, or how do we impose, or maybe impose is not the right word here, when do we intervene
Yeah. So each one of these are going to be a case-by-case basis. But if your child is going to harm themselves or harm someone else, like physically, or harm material possessions or things like this, you would like to step in. Being that your child's under 18, right? 8. Okay, yeah. So at that age, they're very young. They have very little wisdom at that point. They could very easily cause harm. And then when they cause harm, that harm is going to come back to them because they're producing that unwholesome result. So you would like to be able to step in those kinds of situations. But when you're stepping in, you're doing it in a respectful way and helping them to cultivate wisdom rather than yelling and hollering and screaming or belittling them or degrading them for the decisions that they're about to make or that they have made. What you would like to do is, like I was talking about earlier, separate the decisions they make from the person. This is really helpful because when I sit down with my son, we always talk about his decisions. I never talk about him as a person. I never say like, you are, this or you are that. I'm not talking about him as a person. We're talking about his decision, about whether this decision that he's making is wise or unwise. So at 8 years old, you're going to need to step in at different times, but you would like to be able to make sure that when you're stepping in, you're not making decisions for them, but you're helping them cultivate wisdom to then make decisions for themselves. You're welcome. Okay, so it looks like we have a question. Okay, I can't quite read this. We have a question on YouTube. It says, let me just open this up here. It says, good evening. Thank you. Your wisdom and experience. I'm glad to find your teachings. Oh, okay. You're welcome. You're welcome. I thought you had a question, but you're welcome. Pleased to help you. All right. Let me see if we have anything on Facebook. I don't see anything on Facebook. Okay, so now some more here. It's important to communicate with a purpose. Sometimes when we have attachment to people, and let's just say your partner goes on a business meeting or a business trip, and now you guys are away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like this. You might call each other and be like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I miss you. Oh, I wish I was there with you. What are you having for lunch? What are you doing for dinner? Just kind of like indulging in a conversation just for the sake of the conversation, not really having a true purpose behind your conversation. It might just be like, oh, I miss you. I wish I was there. Oh, this trip is too long. Why can't I be back with you? All these kinds of things. You might have done this in the past, or maybe you're having experiences with this now. It's important that when you talk, that you have a purpose. Not this, where are you? What are you doing? I miss you. I want to do this with you, but communicate with some kind of purpose. In fact, if you go away on a business trip, if it's possible for you to not talk for a few days, that's actually really possible. That's really helpful because it distances your mind from having to hold on to this person and talk to them every single day. That's the mind holding on and craving permanence. So introducing some impermanence where some days you guys talk and then maybe you go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days without talking. And that's okay. You don't have to talk every single day. Remember, meditation and generosity, the breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, that's general training. That's going to train your mind to let go, let go, let go. You're always interested in maintaining that. That's a daily, frequent practice that the Buddha teaches you to do daily. So your meditation should be 2 to 3 times per day, building up to 30 minutes. That's going to help you all the way throughout your entire life. And then your generosity should be every day as well. What you're going to notice is the frequency is more important than the amount. So if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, just go for the 2 for 15 and then gradually expand that over time. Your generosity is the same way, that the frequency of your generosity is more important. So if it was a matter of giving like $500 once a year to an orphanage or $1 a day, for the entire year, the $1 a day is going to be better because it's training your mind to let go more frequently. And when you're practicing generosity, it's your time, effort, energy, and resources more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. And you like to be able to do this in ways that doesn't really take a significant, huge amount of time from you, right? So let's just say you're at the market buying some mangoes for yourself. Well, if you know your neighbor likes bananas, just toss some bananas in there too. Only takes you like another 30 seconds or a minute to do that. No big deal, right? Or say you're coming out of your house on your way to work and you see your neighbor's trash is blown all over their yard. Well, just take 5 minutes, clean it up. If you have the time to do that, just clean it up and then put the trash can away. No big deal, just 5 minutes here or there, right? This is what's going to help you to be able to be practicing generosity, to let go, let go, let go. And that's going to help your mind to let go of all craving, desire, attachment. So you're going to need to have your meditation and generosity as a consistent, ongoing training for your mind, in addition to all the things that I'm teaching you here. If you can walk together in life and walk together in these teachings where possible, where everybody's learning these teachings, this is going to be really helpful for you. So like in a household where everybody's learning the teachings and practicing the teachings, this is really beneficial because everybody's supporting each other in their growth and development. That's not always possible. Sometimes it's one person or another that's learning the teachings and it's not the entire household. But if it's possible to have the entire household learning where everybody's interested, this is going to promote the best opportunity for you guys to practice non-attachment. Because like the example I gave you guys before, whereas if you are practicing the teachings and your life partner is not, and they go on a business trip and they call you and they say, hey, honey, did you miss me? No, I didn't miss you. What? You didn't miss me, right? They're going to think that that's the love, when in reality, you're just not attached to them. It's like you enjoy your time with them, but you also enjoy your time when you're away from them. That's what it means to be liberated and free from attachment. Whereas if you can only enjoy your time when you're with this person, that's attachment. Your mind's connected to them, dependent on them. You can't be happy unless they're around. Now your mind is bound up. You would like to get free of that. And this other person may not understand that. So when everybody's practicing, you can support each other in the home to be able to practice the teachings. If you have someone that you sleep with regularly and you sleep together, it's best to sometimes sleep alone. Sometimes we think that like a couple, like a married couple or someone who's living together, if you're sleeping together, the relationship's going really, really well. But if somebody's sleeping on the sofa, oh, there's a big argument in the house. There's a problem here, right? Well, even during the good times, you would like to sometimes sleep alone because your mind can get attached to sleeping with the same person. And now when this person's away, you have difficulty sleeping. So part of the mind's attachment is that when you guys are sleeping next to each other each day in and day out, the mind's getting attached to this. So you would like to sometimes sleep together and sometimes sleep alone, and do this for many months where you're doing this back and forth. Maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 days you sleep together, maybe 1 day or 2 days you sleep separate, and then maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 days you sleep together, and then maybe 1, 2, 3 days you sleep separate. This is going to train your mind to let go and that this person is impermanent in your life. So now as you guys need to travel and you go different places, you'll be completely comfortable sleeping alone, that your mind's not holding on, right? Because this is what your mind's going to do when you're sleeping together all the time. So you like to sometimes sleep alone, and this is going to train your mind to let go. No attachment actually cultivates closeness in your relationships. If you understand what attachment is, where the mind's emotions and feelings are dependent on the other person, this is going to produce painful feelings in the relationship. Your mind's going to have painful feelings because your emotions and feelings are dependent on whether this person is doing things your way or not. But when you get rid of that attachment, you actually are going to be closer in the relationship. You guys will be able to get along much better. I don't know when you guys grew up, but this is something that I grew up with. People used to always say, a family that eats together stays together. This isn't actually true. If you can imagine, let's just say you're in a family of 4 or 6 or 8, the idea of everybody eating at exactly the same time every day, it's just not possible, right? Because of impermanence. But if we're all forcing ourselves, everybody has to eat at 6 o'clock because a family who eats together stays together, and we have to force ourselves to all eat at exactly the same time, this is attachment. You're not going to be able to all eat at the same time because you're not all going to get hungry at the same time. If you're completely comfortable with impermanence, you guys can all eat at different times, and this is okay. And you're fine with that, right? You don't have to always eat. Sometimes you're going to eat together, but you don't feel like you have to force yourself to all eat at the same time. Just let everybody eat whenever they're comfortable. That's the way it's going to work really well. And you can set up your environment where it's comfortable for that kind of thing to happen. Like at our home, we have a dining room that has a table, and then we have an L-shaped sofa that is right next to the table. So like if my son was eating, for example, I could sit on the sofa and kind of hang out with him while he's eating, and I can be sitting on the sofa and relaxing, right? Having a conversation with him while he's eating, and vice versa. If I'm eating, he could be on the sofa hanging out as well. So you can spend time with each other, but you don't have to always force each other to eat at the exact same time, because that would produce attachment, and then your minds now are kind of forced to eat at the same time. And for those of you guys that grew up that way, you know that's where all the arguments happen, right? At the dinner table, when everybody's being forced to eat at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock at exactly the same time, because people don't want to be there, right? But they're being forced to be there. Their mind is forcing them to be there, and they're trying to pressure themselves into eating at the same time when they really don't want to be there. And this is where a lot of the arguments happen, right? Because of the attachment. If there's discontentedness, that means there's an attachment. You can't experience any discontentedness if there isn't craving, desire, attachment. So if you're having a life partner or a child or your parents or your siblings, if you're noticing you're getting angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling, if you're having stress or anxiety, there is an attachment there, and you need to be able to uncover what that is. Like we were talking yesterday, use that as the red light on the dashboard of your car, right? That's the dashboard. That's the alert in your mind alerting you that there's an attachment. So if there's discontentedness, there is an attachment. It's important to keep in mind that quality time is more important than the quantity of time. Sometimes we just spend a lot of time with somebody thinking that somehow that shows our love. Well, it's more about the quality of time. You might not be able to spend a lot of time with any particular person in your life, but when you are spending time with them, if it's quality time, this is what's really important. So focus on the quality of the time that you spend together rather than the quantity of time. And then you're going to need to have patience, because attachments are eliminated gradually over time. They're not going to be quick. Like I mentioned to you with my wife, I saw it took at least 5 to 6 years when my wife was actively trying to eliminate it. And there were things that were going on prior to that, that her attachment was starting to be eliminated. But when she was actively trying to eliminate it, it took about 5 to 6 years. And I was there helping them too. There were certain things I was doing to kind of create environment where they could eliminate their attachment. But my wife and my son, they had an attachment for a very long time. You know, mothers tend to be attached to their children, right? Because this being was inside your womb. It was inside your body, part of your body. Of course, there's easy for the mind to become attached. And fathers can be attached too, just as easily, right? Before this being even comes into the world, you're already attached to it. So you're going to need to be patient with these attachments and understand that they're going to be worn away gradually over time. And now the last thing that I'll share with you guys on this topic, and then I'll open up to whatever questions you guys have. In addition to all the things that I've been talking about so far, as well as the Eightfold Path and meditation and generosity and all these different ideas that I'm sharing with you guys about how to eliminate your attachment, this is like the ultimate way to eliminate your attachment to anybody who you're close to. Is called reflection on death. The Buddha used to refer to this as reflection on death or contemplation of death. The biggest, most challenging thing that you will face in any relationship that you have an attachment in is the person's death. When they die, if you're attached to them, you will have sadness, you will have grief, you will have sorrow. It's not your love that's causing that, because you could have someone die in your life that you really, truly love deeply, but you're not upset, you're not sad, because your mind's not attached to them, right? But if you have an attachment, when someone dies, you will be sad and you will grieve and you will feel sorrow. It's almost like someone cut you off at the knees or pulled the carpet out from under your feet when this person dies. So rather than wait for this to occur, you can do something called reflection on death or contemplation on death. The way that you do this is you sit quietly somewhere with your eyes closed and you envision in your mind that this person has died. You're not aspiring for their death. You're not wanting them to die, but you're just convincing the mind that they have died. You kind of play it out in your mind. Maybe you got a phone call from a police officer or a doctor or nurse, or some family member contacted you and told you that this person has died. And now you play it out in your mind about their death, maybe their funeral, their burial, and all these other things, all that's going on at this time frame. And then you also do the latter part, that your life has moved on and now that you're doing other things. You might actually grieve during this process. It can take about 10 or 15 minutes to play this out in your mind. You might actually be sorrowful. You might actually grieve. You might even start crying during this period of time. And if so, that's because your craving's getting triggered. And now you're going to need to regain your composure over the next couple hours or days. You're going to need to regain your composure. And then after about 2 weeks or a month or so, you like to do it again and train your mind to do this again, and keep doing it like this until you get to the point where you've done it once or twice and you're not grieving anymore. You're not sorrowful anymore. You're just like, yep, you understand this person's going to die. When I did this in my early 20s with my grandmother and my mom, they weren't there. I was doing it in my own mind. As I did this, there were certain things that I was like, wow, if grandma would have really died, I would have never said this thing to her that I've always been interested to say to her, and I've never said it to her, and I wouldn't have actually been able to say it to her. Or there were these certain questions that I was interested in asking her that I would have never had the answer to. So after I was done with this reflection on death, and I knew the things that I was interested to say to her, or the questions I was interested to ask her, I just called her up on the phone. It was beautiful, because if she would have really died, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But I was able to pick up the phone and call her and say, hey, Grandma, I've always been meaning to tell you. And by the way, I've been meaning to ask you. Right? She didn't know what I was doing, but I was able to fulfill that within my mind, and then it was gone. Right? And I did this with my mom. I did it with my grandmother in my early 20s. My mother died in my mid 40s, and I wasn't upset. I didn't grieve because my mind had already let go. Because from the time that I did this reflection on death with both of them, I felt like all the extra time, it was like bonus time, because I'd already convinced my mind that they died, right? And all this extra time that I got to spend with my mom for another 20 years, it was like bonus time. Right? So this is what you can do with your children, with your life partner, with your parents. Even if you have pets, if you have animals and stuff, you can do it in these situations too, where you sit and you imagine in your mind that they have died, and you play that out all the way, 10, 15 minutes. And now, like I said, you might grieve, but then your mind's going to regain its composure, and now you can move on. And you can see that this death isn't anything to be scared of. It's not anything to be sorrowful of, because death is going to come visit every single one of us, right? It's going to come visit us. Death is like waiting in the corner. It's going to come visit you. You can wait for it to sneak up on you and catch you by surprise, or you can go confront death. It's kind of like, I see you sitting over there, death. You're in the corner. I'm going to come visit you. I know you're going to come visit me someday, but you know what? I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to come visit you first, right? This is the way you approach it, right? Because you can do this for your people that you have attachment to, but you can also do this for yourself too. Because if you have a fear of death, you can do it and imagine that you have died within your own mind and play that out. Like you're a fly on the wall and you're watching over your funeral and you're watching what's happening, right? And sometimes when I even talk about this, people get sad just hearing me talk about it. And if that's the case, you can see why this is so important for you to do this, because your mind is holding on to this world. You're holding on to these different people in your life. And if you wait and you don't do what I'm describing, death will be very painful for you. When people start dying in your life, it'll be very painful. And when you get close to death, it'll be very painful for you. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have a fear of death anymore. You just understand it's a natural part of life, that you were born, so you have to die. So this is called reflection on death, or contemplation of death, where you envision in your mind that either you have died or other people have died. And this will train your mind to let go of attachment. And this is the ultimate way to help you with any relationship that you're having attachment in. Again, you're not aspiring for people to die, but you're just envisioning that it has happened. So your mind will let go, and understand that they are impermanent. So any questions on how to eliminate attachment to people who are closest to you? For those of you guys online, you can put your questions in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom.
At this lack of feelings when it comes to someone being far from me or dying due to my living unaware or unconscious for most of my life. I haven't really thought about it. I figured it as natural. But in talking to some people, I've been told that maybe it is an effect of me running away from certain emotions when I was little, of seeing someone sick. Therefore, I have turned my back on it just to avoid the hurt, being hurt. How to differentiate this two? How to understand if I am close to enlightenment? Or
you're not close to enlightenment. I can tell you that, because you won't stumble into enlightenment. You will know when you're enlightened.
So why don't I feel?
So people who don't understand enlightenment and they don't understand the process of getting to enlightenment will think that there's something wrong when someone dies and you don't grieve, because they think that's normal. But that's not normal. That's normal for an unenlightened being, but that's not that's not normal. Like if somebody actually dies and you don't grieve, that's normal for somebody who understands the path to enlightenment, and that's a mind that doesn't have attachment. So the vast majority of the people in the world are unenlightened and they don't understand the path to enlightenment. So they think it's love that's causing grief and sorrow and sadness at the time of death. So when someone dies and you don't grieve, they think that, maybe you didn't love this person. I've had students like contact me. They're like, hey, I just went to a funeral. It was my grandmother. I didn't cry. My family members were accusing me of not loving her, and I know that I do love her. How do I handle this situation? Right? So you need to be confident and understand within your own mind that what's leading to that sorrow and grief and sorrow and displeasure is attachment. It's not love. So you can keep it very clear in your mind that, no, of course I loved my mom. I just didn't grieve when she died because I wasn't attached to her. I'd already eliminated that attachment. So you need to have it clear in your mind. And then understand that your goal isn't to go out into the world and convince other people of what you're experiencing, but only if they ask. Right? If people ask me like, hey, why weren't you, grieving and sorrowful when mom died? Oh, that's because I'm not attached to her. Well, did you love mom? Of course I love mom, right? So I can answer it, but I didn't go out into the world and try to convince people of what I was experiencing, because I don't need to do that. So other people might think that there's something wrong with you because you're not emotional and you're not upset and you're not grieving, but you just need to know for yourself that that's not true, and you need to be able to see true reality. And if they're interested in understanding that, they can ask you and you share it with them, but just don't feel like you have to go out and convince them of what you're experiencing. Because if you know clearly that, of course, you love mom, she died, but you're just not grieving, then you don't have to convince anybody of that. You just know for yourself what you're experiencing. Make sense? Yeah. Enlightened being just walks down the street with wisdom and a smile. They don't have to convince anybody of anything because they know and they can see true reality. Where when we're unenlightened and we have craving, we want to go out and convince people that we're a good person, that we're doing things well. We want to go out and kind of appear and be perceived by others in a certain way. This is why, like, when people call you fat or skinny or whatever, you take offense to it because your mind is wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, where by the time you get to enlightenment, you understand that people are going to perceive you in different ways, and that's on them. It's not on you to convince people to perceive you a certain way. That would be your craving to do that. So just be comfortable that different people are going to look at you differently, and that's on them. If they're interested in knowing about you or your life, they'll ask you, but you don't need to go out and convince people of anything. Just walk down the street with wisdom and a smile, knowing that, yeah, I'm not grieving, and wow, it's so great. It's so wonderful. Gala?
Yes. I have very often dreams of my family and friends dying.
Mm-hmm.
I think a bit more often than a normal person. Do you know why that would be?
Our dreams, we don't have control over what we dream. This is where you can see the body and the mind are two completely different things, and we don't have control over our dreams and what's happening. But oftentimes our dreams are an indication of what's going on in our mind, and we can use them to actually be beneficial for us in terms of, like, say you were waking up regularly having a dream of your own death, and every time you woke up you were fearful. You could see, like, I'm afraid to die, right? The mind's afraid to die. So do death contemplation or reflection on death multiple times over the next few months so you can eliminate that fear. Or if you're having regular dreams of other people dying and you're waking up feeling sad or sorrowful or things like that, then you know you're attached to those people and you would like to do reflection of death for those people so that you can train your mind to let that go. So your dreams are sometimes your mind kind of like purging thoughts, purging things, just processing things that are going on within your own mind. But you can use that as an indication of what's going on in your mind. But just understand that it's not true reality, right? Because when you wake up, if you've had like a frightful dream, no need to be scared in the present moment. Just cut that off and let it go. Understand that it's not true, but then use that as insight into where the cravings and attachments are so that now you can eliminate them in day-to-day life.
And I was recommended the book of the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend it?
I've never read that book.
No?
Yeah. Oftentimes the things that are in the Tibetan tradition of these teachings are about rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. I don't know that book at all, but I just know that tradition, that it oftentimes is very far away from what the Buddha taught. I don't really know that book, but I would suspect that there's some amount of that in the book. So whenever you see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, things like this, you know right away that it's not the teachings of the Buddha. And whoever's writing that kind of stuff and describing it as the teachings of the Buddha, you'll know that they're not enlightened, because they couldn't even have gotten to the first stage of enlightenment if they're still doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, thinking that those things are going to lead to beneficial results in their life. So anything else that they're talking about in their book or in their discourses or what have you, you know that it's not going to lead to enlightenment. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like, oh, you have another question? Sure.
Is it on? Mm-hmm. Do you think there should be some rules in a household?
We don't run our household with rules, because rules are like trying to force people to agree to do things a certain way. Instead, we understand that mom, dad, son, we all do things differently, and we just do things, our own way, but we're practicing these teachings. So part of the practicing the teachings is harmlessness, right? Being disinterested and causing harm to others. So we do things in a way that doesn't impact each other, but we don't have these hard, fast rules in the house, because now it becomes very regimented and very, very, very much forced to do things a certain way. But instead, if you learn the teachings of the Buddha as parents, and then if your child is learning them also, you guys will all be practicing these teachings and everything will go wonderfully. But you're not doing it as a rule. You're doing it as an understanding of the natural law of karma, of cause and effect and action and result, of what would be wise as an individual. And you're not just practicing this at home, you're practicing it in day-to-day life too. So like the way that I function here is the same exact way I function at home. It's not like two different people. It's not like I function one way here and a different way at home. It's just always the same. So if you can practice these teachings, learn them and practice them, and your children can too, and your husband, you won't have to have any rules, because everybody will be practicing wise decision making that isn't causing harm to each other. Okay, All right, so it's just a little bit after 3. Today we'll just end here because this is all I had to share with you guys. So I'll just thank you guys for being interested to learn and ask questions and being here to learn. Tomorrow I'm going to be sharing with you guys some more. We're going to start off our morning with the loving kindness meditation and just like we do, the chanting and so forth. And then I'm going to share this topic, which is sharing the path to enlightenment, how to guide children along the path. This is going to take a good part of the morning because it's pretty, it's a lot of information. But even though it's geared towards children, if you have children, great. But if you don't and you're not even interested in having children, this topic will still help you, because if you have a nephew or niece, or if you have a parent or a sibling who's interested in learning the teachings, this is going to help you to be able to share the teachings with them too, if they're interested in sharing them. Then I'm going to teach you this topic, which is developing and maintaining wholesome relationships with friends and a life partner, because oftentimes people are interested in choosing friends and a life partner, but you would like to do so without conceit, without judging people, without looking down on them. So I'm going to teach you a way to choose wholesome people to be in your life, either as friends or a life partner, without judging people and looking down on them. So this is what I'm going to be sharing with you guys tomorrow in these 2 talks. So whatever you do today, have a wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap.